Thanks very much for making the time and welcome to this talk. My name is Vishnu. I'm the founder and CEO of E6 Data, and we're here to talk about this new data processing sort of architecture that's demanded by a bunch of changes in the world that are underway today. So the title of the talk is really hybrid lakehouses that span multiple regions, multiple clouds, and hybrid environments, on-prem, private cloud, public cloud, and how E6 Data helps you to extend all of the goodness and control that you get with Unity Catalog into this sort of new operating model. So first we'll cover why hybrid and why now. Second, why this forces some really hard questions and poses some really hard constraints. And we'll talk about how new compute engine architectures that are platform compatible with Unity and the Databricks ecosystem allow you to sort of navigate these challenges. And then finally, show you maybe an example scenario or a use case. Right? So E6 Data is a new generation of Lakehouse compute engine that's built with a industry pioneering atomic architecture. So this is really a distributed, decoupled set of high performance services that come together to act like a compute engine. And this gives us some unique advantages for it to help you navigate the complexity of some of these scale workloads that span complex environments. So one of the things that a lot of you are probably aware of is that there are multiple compliance clocks that are ticking. There's been a flurry of regulations that have been introduced around the world around data sovereignty, data localization, and generally restrictions on what data can move where and across what boundaries, right? While these have been introduced progressively over time, these have suddenly gotten teeth and are going into enforcement, and compliance is a major headache for data teams across the world, right? So no tier one enterprise or any enterprise can sort of do things in the earlier way where you just copy data that is sensitive across borders without consideration for some of these factors. This may seem like an edge case, but this really applies to sort of almost all of us, right? Like I was quite shocked when I found this, that over 70% of global GDP is now subject to some data residency mandate or the other. And that just makes like virtually anything that you do with data be sort of subject to so much more scrutiny, your information security officers, your compliance officers, and the fines around these are massively hefty, right? Like no enterprise can really take these for granted. You're probably seeing that your businesses or the leadership now wants a strategy that spans multiple clouds as well as multiple platforms, whether it's public cloud, private cloud, and on-prem. Where always we've been used to like software license costs in the old days in the on-prem world. Now we're used to consumption-based pricing models with compute costs being the dominant paradigm. And now we're suddenly waking up to this new thing, which is data egress costs as data moves across boundaries, right? So these egress costs apply when data moves across regions within the same cloud, when data moves between one cloud and another, and of course on-prem, from cloud to on-prem environments as well. And I think I made these slides a month ago before we submitted for the talk. There's probably some new localization rules that have come in since then as well. So we've always been focused. If we think about all the cool things that we've learned during the keynotes over the past few days, these have been around some of the things that we're most excited by, like powerful new capabilities on the AI side, the analytics side, and data engineering side, right? And we're excited by all of the things that we can empower or unlock for our businesses because of this stuff. And as we scale adoption, we're also now grappling with realities like cost efficiency, ROI, and so on. But we knew that would happen. But what I think a lot of us have not really come to grips with is that compliance is now a deal breaker, showstopper requirement, right? So if you cannot comply, then you cannot deliver a capability. The basic capabilities that our businesses need to run, and when you're a business that spans multiple geographic regions, when you are subject to any form of regulation whatsoever, compliance will threaten to play spoil sport, and I think that that's one of the most worrying things about where we are at today, especially with when we can see and touch and feel the powerful things that Gen AI and advanced analytics are unlocking for us. Right, so what's at stake? There's no, like, we don't need to overstate this. The rules are, the compliance mandates are extraordinarily harsh, and no one knows when they'll be enforced, but when they do, they will hurt, right? So we need to be prepared. And I think the message that I wanted to sort of land was really that existing compute architectures, which were essentially born 15, 16 years ago, in the aftermath of the Hadoop era, where the big innovation was separating storage from compute. So those really like added a leapfrog in capabilities compared to what existed. But that was 15 years ago, and no one could imagine the data landscape evolving the way it has. So there are new compute architectures that are built for such complexity and for these challenges that also push the boundaries on performance and cost. Right, so I know that we're all fans of the Databricks platform. We're all like fans of how Unity allows us to centrally govern, define policies, and really like apply this across the data estate. And Unity is one of the most loved capabilities of Databricks. And when you talk about, hey, I am on the Databricks platform, a lot of what you mean is, hey, I'm on Unity, right? So Unity today gives us this power, but how do we extend Unity across the boundaries of just one cloud or across these different deployment environments, right? Like private clouds, on-prems, or wherever your data lives, really. So this is sort of where E6 data comes in. We believe that we can deliver on the performance promises that you want to offer your business, that you can offer a wide, unrestricted set of capabilities, all while operating within a governed, secure, sort of compliant, Unity enforced sort of world. Right. So what this means for your customers really is like lower cost compute, because compute is not idle waiting for data to flow across narrow bandwidth pipes across regions or across environments. A compliant compute where you have zero policy misses. Compliant compute where this is audit ready on day one. If a regulator comes and asks you, hey, you're powering powerful analytics, but are you doing this in a compliant way? Where's your audit trail? Right. So where you have not just compliance but also auditability by design. And of course, both of this means like business agility and not having any business interruption because of these compliance mandates. So we're saying compliance, capabilities, and cost efficiency all go hand in hand. So this is an example of a lakehouse architecture, a hybrid lakehouse architecture, one that is super simplified, right? Where you have a cloud environment, you have an on-prem environment, and you have like object storage or object store compatible storage on both, right? And what you can then say is that, hey, I have some data sets that live on the cloud. Let's say the majority of your data sets, 80-90% of your data sets. But there are some data sets that live in lakehouses in, let's say S3 or object store compatible storage on-prem or on private clouds. And you either have the choice of a central Unity that lives in the cloud or a federated Unity governance structure that is split between the cloud and other environments, right? So often the need is that on-prem data can never cross over to the cloud because of these data compliance mandates. And of course, then that means that, okay, what about the cloud data? Yes, it can cross over into on-prem boundaries, but it's super expensive because of egress. So you want to minimize the egress by processing as much of the execution tree of your query or your job locally to where the data lives or where the data originated. So that's sort of the problem statement, right? And then you still want this to be like adherent and fit within your OIDC or auth-C, auth-N and your various enterprise encryption needs and so on. So what we've introduced with E6 data is, because of our architecture, we've been able to adapt to this new world and offer single logical clusters that essentially span multiple deployment scenarios: cloud, on-prem, private cloud, and so on. So for you, it's like a SQL warehouse, a single SQL warehouse, but the actual execution resources or cluster components could span multiple deployment environments. which for you like completely abstracts the complexity away and just focuses on, hey, what's the job to be done? How fast should my query run? What's the TCO goal of this use case? Or what capability do I want to offer? So we've sort of like demoed this or benchmarked this to just show the impact, where we say, hey, let's say that you have a catalog in the cloud, which is on Unity, and you have like a table there, just as a super simple example, but you have a 700 million record table there. And you have, let's say, a different catalog just for kicks on-prem, and a different, it could be the same lakehouse format, a different lakehouse format, doesn't matter, but two different data sets basically. And let's say you have a query that touches both of these data sets, right? Like you're either unioning or joining, or you're processing across the two data sets. So this was a simple example that we sort of crafted. And what we said is that there's two ways you could do this. One is where you process. So this is the cloud environment with the cloud data set. This is the on-prem environment with the on-prem data set. Like I said, you could have either a single, central catalog or a federated catalog, doesn't matter. And in this case, you had all of your compute, the E6 data compute cluster running on-prem. Now, E6 data is unique because our compute engine is made up of a granular set of almost microservices, with each service corresponding to one part of the processing lifecycle or one activity of the processing lifecycle. So you can see here you have a bunch of workspace services, you have planners, you have the task distribution queue, and you have executor pods here. And all of these live on-prem. So if this query executed on this on-prem cluster, what you would have is you're touching the data set in the cloud, you're touching the data set on-prem, and you're bringing this cloud data over on-prem, and you're processing it in the compute and returning the result to the client, right? So that's option one. Option two, which is the smarter, more optimized option, is a single E6 data warehouse, right? To you, it's an endpoint that's exposed on-prem, but the cluster actually spans Kubernetes clusters on the cloud as well as a separate Kubernetes cluster on-prem. But again, I repeat, for you, it's just one logical cluster that you interact with on-prem, right? So what this means is that if you have a SQL execution tree or a Python sort of DAG, parts of the DAG that like need to touch data on the cloud will be processed closest to where the data is. That is, executors are aware that, hey, I'm only eligible to pick up tasks pertaining to the data that lives or originates near me, right? And then don't process other parts of the data because it's either non-compliant or just going to result in a huge amount of egress. So the on-prem executors would not touch parts of the query tree for which data originates on the cloud. Those would be handled by executor pods here, right? So the impact is like, pretty astonishing, right? So that simple query that we ran, it took us about 41 seconds to run in this simplistic or a plain vanilla mode where all of the compute is on-prem. And this is pretty powerful compute, except that the pipe that connects, the network pipe that connects the cloud to the on-prem boundary is like tiny, it's a straw, right? So most of your executors are spending a ton of their time just waiting for the data to be scanned from remote sources, and this is super slow execution. You're also paying a ton because of egress. Whereas if you did this in this new compliant-aware, affinity-aware computing model that we've developed, the same query runs in 2.5 seconds, and egress comes down by like some 95, 99%, saving you both egress cost, but also compute cost. Your cluster is running for less time, it can process more queries, and of course, the user experience is like just night and day different, right? It's just better here. So this is something that is available for you, as you're running into multiple compliance mandates. This might even help you if you just work with data across regions, because it may not be something that where compliance is hurting you, but cost is hurting you with egress and cluster cost, right? Like, so that's another area where E6 could help you. And this is particularly appealing to financial services, government agencies, folks in the healthcare and pharma sectors, and increasingly these new industries that find themselves hit with regulatory mandates. So basically every industry looks like it's going to be impacted by these compliance rules. So this is really what we do with E6 data. We try to make sure this is audit ready on day one, so you could focus on the business, and you allow us to handle this complexity for you. That was the talk. We have a booth just outside here, so if you'd like to learn more, please pop by. Thank you very much, and feel free to pop by for any questions.